always named Memphis. So this is just to give you a background of what kind of spiritual aspect is actually going on. So anyway, I got a call to go back to Memphis. I hadn't gone since 93, 16 years ago. 16 years ago. Because I'm this month is the 18th year of me speaking. Because I started speaking on June 27th, 1992. And so this month is like the 18th year, 18th anniversary or whatever. But anyway, when I came back, the guy I got out of the airport. This was on the 2nd. No, this was on the 31st or the 3rd, whatever. Because I spoke on the 1st. And I got out of the airport, and I was in baggage claim. And the guy who came to pick me up, he had never gone to pick someone up at the airport, and so he went to departures looking around where he supposed to have been in arrivals. So I sat there maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And when I sat down, I said, wait a minute, hold on. When this kind of thing happens, they want me to slow down. And I asked the question, why am I in Memphis? And they immediately said, you got to go to the Lorraine Motel. That is the motel, for the people who don't know, the motel that Martin Luther King was killed or was assassinated.
Right.
Yeah. In April 4th, 1968. And so they say, you have to go to the Lorraine Motel. There's something that you have to do. So I said, oh, here's another thing just like that. Had to go to that church in Birmingham, Alabama.
Right.
So, but I said, well, I know that it can't be to rescue Martin Luther King, because I talked to him the day after his wife made the transition. His wife made the transition, which in so many words, this is when I knew this man was more than even I gave him credit for, because, I talked a lot of junk about Martin Luther King in the 90s and stuff. But then again, I was on like a whole Elijah Muhammad kick and that whole two sides kick, Malcolm, Martin, that whole thing. So I was in that church of my views. But when he came to talk to me about his wife and made mention that he was the one that pulled his wife out of her body and rescued her in Mexico, we talked for a minute, and he kissed me on the forehead. And I was like, well, that's kind of wild. I said, after all the junk I done talked about you. But then again, on the other hand, you got to realize this earthly stuff is only an illusion anyway. Most people, and I've heard this from several seers, and when they make contact with Malcolm X, they say, Malcolm X, where are you now? He said, I'm with Elijah Muhammad. So we got down here, we just still have these arguments based on, things that happened in 1963, 64, 65 when he made the transition. But in the spirit realm, you see what I'm saying? There's none of that.
That's so
these
true.
were only roles. These were only roles we was playing down here. So when he kissed me on the forehead and stuff like that, it made me go back and realize certain things. Realize certain things, that he was even instrumental in helping me. And I'll say that. Why? Because when the time I had to do my major studies, I had to go around the South, and especially here in Atlanta, and I used to go to these metaphysical bookstores every day. And they would just load me down with things and give me all this material. They would tell me, we got a white boy just jumping on a plane to go to England to get some chaos magic. You want to get down with that and stuff. And I thought about it. I said, if it wasn't for a civil rights movement, I wouldn't have been allowed to do these kind of things in the South, you see, at the particular time, 30 years later. You see, you see what I'm saying? So my point here, everything has its advantage. Everything down here is a role that comes together ultimately. You see, it comes together ultimately. So, to make a long story short, I knew I had to go to the Lorraine Motel. I knew I was doing the lecture that day. I said, the next day, I said, I know he's not stuck because I've already talked to him, and my point is he sacrificed on a certain level until he automatically went where he was supposed to go. So it wasn't a thing like the little girls that that was stuck in the hotel for 43 years. You see what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
Right, and they didn't know they was dead. So I said, well, I will figure it out as the day go on. And so by the end of that night, about 1 o'clock, they came through and said, hey, listen, when Martin Luther King was killed or was executed or assassinated, when he was shot at that hotel, there ended up being 60 riots across the country. And black people suffered. And because it was never really resolved what the murder was and who killed it and that whole thing and that whole, what's your boy, Ray, whatever his name is, that thing didn't fare too good. It opened up a void, a vortex, that started sucking all types of negative energy in. Now, you got to understand, it's not just you say, well, there was like, no, this is more than just some little civil rights incident that did not remedy itself, or did not remedy itself or something, or some unfinished business. No, because of who he was. Now, we did some work on St. Martin. St. Martin is none other than the leg bar. And we go into the information of a professor from Haiti, because it's all related. And she talks about the history of Haiti, and she talks about how you had Toussaint, the great warrior, emancipator of Haiti, and you had Dessalines. And she said, Toussaint was Elegba. Now, Elegba, Moses, these same figures, because whether the Hebrew people know it or not, these Moses and David and all those were not historical people. Those were mythological figures and godlike figures that they historicalized later on. You see what I'm saying? That's why you can go to ancient Egypt, and everybody who supposedly lived, you can find their graves. You can find their tombs. You can find stelas, which are these stones. You can find statues. You can find something to say that these people lived. You have never, ever been able to find any Hebrew person that's supposedly been a live person, a grave site, a stone, a stela, a funerary papyrus, or anything. Tell us where their graves are. That's because they never existed. Now, so what happened here is Toussaint was a form of Elegba. Now, Elegba is a person that comes and he opens the way. It's also a form of Ganesha, remover of obstacles. So you have several of these particular Elegba or opener figures. Hermes, Tahuti, Moses, Legba, Ishu, Ganesha, Iberus, Anubis, Merlin. You see what I'm saying? These people, these great initiates, but they open the gates. And St. Martin is one of the saints from the cat, is a form of a Legba, because you know the Santeria people or the Yoruba people had to hide the seven African powers and the major divinities up under the Catholic Church. So St. Martin was a form of a Legba. Now, to line this up on how important this was, because you got to realize the Legba or Ishu is the one that sets over the lowers, the gods. You can't get to the gods until you invoke Legba. You see what I'm saying? Legba, Legba, Ishu. You see. Now, Toussaint fought the war in Haiti, but because he was